A federal judge orders federal agents at Portland's ICE facility to scale back their use of force on protesters for now.
Investigative reporter Adrian Thomas joins us now live in studio. So, Adrian, you've been pouring through this court order that just came down. What's the latest?
Well, Pete, this is a major development in this case that's been playing out in federal court since November after protesters at Portland's ICE facility filed a federal complaint alleging excessive use of force by federal law enforcement at the South Waterfront ICE facility. Now, this comes after hundreds of protesters clashed with law enforcement this weekend. Take a look at the video here. The past few days saw multiple instances of federal law enforcement firing tear gas, flashbangs, and other crowd control rounds at protesters on the South Waterfront. Now, this prompted multiple new court filings Sunday night by protesters in this case, complaining about federal law enforcement's alleged use of force on protesters and asking a federal judge to intervene. Just this afternoon, federal judge Michael Simon here in Portland issued a temporary restraining order barring federal law enforcement at the ICE facility on South McAdam from using force against protesters involving chemical or projectile munitions. Now, the judge's order states federal law enforcement can't use munitions like tear gas, pepper balls, or pepper spray, flashbangs, or other non-lethal rounds, but they can if someone poses an imminent threat of physical harm to law enforcement or another person. The judge clarified in his order that protesters who are peaceful but trespassing or refusing to move when asked are exempt from having these kinds of munitions shot at them as long as they stay peaceful. The next hearing in this case is an evidentiary hearing scheduled in Oregon's District Court on March 2nd. Now, in response to this temporary restraining order, Assistant Department of Homeland Security Secretary Tricia McLaughlin sent us a statement which reads in part, quote, "The First Amendment protects speech and peaceful assembly, not rioting. DHS is taking appropriate and constitutional measures to uphold the rule of law and protect our officers and the public from dangerous rioters. We remind the public that rioting is dangerous, obstructing law enforcement is a federal crime, and assaulting law enforcement is a felony." Now, the statement also cited instances of federal law enforcement being assaulted or federal property being vandalized, and that officers used the, quote, "minimum amount of force necessary to protect themselves, the public, and federal property." Portland Mayor Keith Wilson also just released a statement in support of the judge's order. Live in studio, Adrian Thomas, Fox 12 Oregon.